What's up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Barbecue. What I'm going to be doing today is we're going to be making a tri-tip. I'm going to be cooking this on my Weber Kettle Grill, and I'm going to be using Adrenaline Barbecues Company Slow N Sear. This is going to be the last video I do before I actually do my review on the Slow N Sear. Anyway, I'm making this tri-tip for some steak tacos tonight, so I'm going to be changing these seasonings up a little bit from the typical. You know, if I hear salt, pepper, garlic one more time from people like, that's all you need, I swear to God, I'm so tired of it. What I'm using with this is we have salt, pepper, garlic. I have a little bit of cumin in there. I have some cayenne pepper, some paprika, and what else did I throw in there? A little bit of ground oregano. Anyway, anything other than salt, pepper, garlic, because sometimes I just get irritated just hearing that all the time. At some point, live a little, add a little something else to your meat. Anyway, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to rub this tri-tip down with some olive oil. This is a pretty decent size tri-tip. Looks like they did a good job seasoning it at the store, so I'm not going to be trimming that at all. We're going to go ahead and throw our seasoning on here. And tri-tip is one of those meats that can take a lot of seasoning, although we're not going to go super heavy on it. We're just going to kind of do a nice little dusting on it. My goal, once we get out on the Weber, is to get this Slow N Sear set up. I'm not going to be using the, if you're familiar with the Slow N Sear, we're not going to be using the water chamber in it. I'm going to actually load that Slow N Sear up with coals all the way up to the top, and then I'm just going to kind of regulate the temperature on the cook using my top and bottom vents of my smoker. So we're going to cook this kind of low and slow, probably at that 225 degree area, even with all the coals in there. And then once we hit about 115 degrees on this tri-tip internal temperature, what I'm going to do is take it out and let it rest. Once this had a chance to rest, we're going to go ahead, open up the vents, actually take the lid off of the Weber, get those coals searing hot, and then we're going to sear it off on both sides. Anyway, I'm going to light this grill up in probably about another 20 minutes, but I'm going to let this kind of come to temperature here and kind of chill out for a while. And I will see you back after we get this Weber fired up. Right, so on some of these Slow N Sear videos, you see where people just put like 12 coals in there and then they just dump the unlit coals. Over here, I have all these are pretty much humming right now. And that's because I really want this to be hot when we get down to searing it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this tri-tip on the far side here. I'm going to get our lid on, and I'm going to put my vents over the meat. And since these coals are going so hot over here, I'm going to shut this top vent down to about maybe a quarter, just so we don't get too hot as far as the temperature goes. Anyway, we're going to keep rolling with this until we get to about 115 degrees internal temperature, and then we'll let it rest and sear it off. So it looks like we are just under 115 degrees, and I'm kind of going more on the rare side on this, so we're going to go ahead and pull this off now. And I'm going to go ahead and let it rest. And I'm going to also, I had some of these vents closed down a little bit. We're going to go ahead and open up these vents wide open so these coals can get super hot. Let's go ahead and throw this on. And I'm not going to put the lid back on. We're just going to cook it straight over the coals with the lid off. Now, since we did cook it only to 115 degrees, we have about 10 degrees worth of temperature we can play with to still keep it in that medium rare range. So we're going to make sure we get a nice crust on this. If I'd have taken it too far past 115 degrees, we would risk getting an overcooked steak trying to get the crust on the outside. So we cooked this for about 5 minutes. I did just flip it over, and it looks like we have some decent char on that side. I'm going to let this go about another 5 minutes, and then we're going to I'm going to temp it, make sure we're not climbing up too high in the temperature, and then I may flip it a couple more times. Alright guys, looks like we're reading about 128 degrees. That's fine for me. I'm going to go ahead, pull this off, and let it rest for about 15-20 minutes. Alright, so it is time to see what is up with this tri-tip. My grains are kind of running in this direction, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half. And there's kind of what we're looking like on that. Then we're just going to go across the grain. We're going to be having these with some tacos. So here's what we're looking like. I may need to throw this in a skillet for my wife, but that is cooked to perfection as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I think that might as well just be the taste test. Now, anybody thinking about buying that Adrenaline Barbecue Slow N Sear? I've used it in a bunch of different applications. I've cooked on it, you know, slow for long periods of time. Just now did it high. I've used it under a bunch of different conditions, and I'm telling you, it does good in all of them. So all their information is going to be in the description below. Run by there, check out some of their products. Anyway, thanks for stopping by No Hippie Barbecue. I appreciate it. Comment, subscribe. Now I'm out.